Sorry about yesterday's video. I know that there wasn't an upload, but that was because it got taken down due to a copyright claim. I played the music from I played the song "For the Love of Money" by the OJ's, and it got taken down. I guess I guess whoever owns the music wouldn't allow the song to even be played, and I did credit it, but it has to do with a certain copyright. Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to Minds Behind the Music. I'm your host, LA. Today, I will be talking about a specific topic that involved my personal experience. This particular experience happened over a year ago. Hold on, I had to catch my breath for a second. Um, this specific experience was when I flew over to the UK for an entire semester to study abroad at England's very own Anglia Ruskin University. This was a uh, this was a partnered program that the current college that I went to had, and I was one of the few recent people that have taken that study abroad program, and I ended up going for the fall 2019 semester. But I had a lot of great experiences, both just going to the UK and playing with musicians there. But what I want to talk about first is the contrast between the UK and the US. I noticed that a lot, I noticed there are many social differences in musicians that play in the US versus the ones that play in the UK, at least from my experience, both in community college and in a 4 year school. One being that a lot of the a lot of the classes that I've taken haven't really encouraged much collaboration. I'm not saying that they haven't done it at all, but I noticed the UK, a lot of the musicians know each other. There's more connections. People know what people to who to jam with and who to, make music with. And it's all a matter of experimentation and testing the waters. One particular experience that I will never forget is forming a blues band with three other guys. One of the guys being an English guitarist. He was from England. The drummer was Spanish and Portuguese. I believe he grew up in Portugal, but he was from Spain. The other was a keyboard player. He also played bass, but he was a keyboard player for our band. He was from Romania. Excuse me, guys. I just had breakfast. Uh, and we formed we practiced a couple times, we jammed, and there was definitely chemistry, and we even wrote a song together. I believe it's called The Sweetest Thing. We have never released it yet. um I'm not I'm still talking to the drummer about that because we were mixing and mastering it. I was mixing it and the drummer's going to master it, and we never mm, we still haven't released it yet. We'll definitely let you know. We haven't we The weird thing is we haven't even thought of a name for our band. We never thought of the name. Like, out of all the 3 months that I was there, I got there in September, and I started, like, the classes started at the end of September, and I formed the band in October. But we still never thought of a name. Like, the only band that I've been in that had a definitive name was Progress Avenue, but we never decided on a name. But I guess only time will tell. And another thing that really stuck with me was how laid back the school was. Just the teachers, the assignments, the classes. I'm not saying that it wasn't insightful work. We didn't do work. We did a lot of work, but it was a very different dynamic than, say, what you would do at a school in the US. There wasn't many, like, homework assignments. It was more about the experiences in the class, and it was definitely apparent the in the performance classes. I took the performance class, which substituted over the performance class at my school, And what we basically did in the performance class was pick one out of three songs to cover or do an original song of yours and present it to the class. You had to practice with a few of the classmates and present it to the class. And I think that that was a very unique and nuanced way to find out if you have chemistry with a certain person at your school. This was definitely apparent in just the performance in general. It impacted the performance and just the practice that you do with certain people. I can recall almost all of the performances I did for that class. I covered with a bunch of people. I was in numerous groups, but I remember the songs I helped cover were "Blue" by Joni Mitchell. That was definitely an interesting cover. I'm hoping I don't get blocked for just mentioning these names. We covered 1999 by Prince. We covered Every Breath You Take by the Police. There was different covers that we did for the class, and there was a final performance that we did in the middle of December where you have to have, at least for the class that I was in, you have to have a performance that is about 20 minutes, or at least close to or a little over 20 minutes. So I'd say about if it was like a minute over 20 minutes, like 21 minutes, it wouldn't have been a problem. But that was definitely a fun time, and I partnered up with one person. Um, he's even really he's even had some music out. He has a YouTube channel. I could definitely link it in the description. His name is the Daman, or he goes by the Man because his name is Daman. He's a he was a he was an Indian musician living in Cambridge who I believe we started practicing and chilling and performing with each other since October of that year, and we still keep in touch to this day. And I gotta say that kid is quite a talent. He was definitely one of the most professional and competent musicians I've ever played with. But that was one of the instances, and he was a cool funny guy, and we even like hung out times we even hung out and just got food and just talked even. And sorry guys if you hear the garage door, my sister just got home. But he we had we were able to hang out and just be cool outside of music and be friends or talk. And he was a very laid back guy, very professional musician. And there are even people that I didn't really perform much, but I learned to really be good friends with. There were a lot of the first year students that I ended up doing that with. I helped them with a few other performances, but I grew closer to them more as friends because I had a first year class. And it's it doesn't always have to be the chemistry you have with them. I'm even friends with people here that are in music, and we're not we I can't determine that we have chemistry as musicians, like performing together. It's not always working that way, and I believe I brought that up from the what I learned from playing with musicians in the past. But the the thing is with a lot of those musicians that I have worked with, it was always a good clean structure. Even if I only performed with them once, we knew what we had to do, and we did what we could to get it done. And that was always the attitude that I looked for in musicians, which is what I brought up in the video that I just mentioned. Y- I the class and onto the class structure. I mostly took classes that substituted over classes I needed to take back at my school in the US. And the classes were I believe about four, because at the school I go to, or the school I went to, I just graduated from, Ramapo. It was about four classes. One of them was a first year class, which was about popular music. It was basically popular music in context, how it affected, the country, the government, and popular music in context. The second year because it substituted over two different classes I had to take at my school here, and I had another second year, which was music performance. I performed with a lot of the second years, and the fourth one was a third year class, which is basically senior year for them. It was a film soundtrack composition class, which I surprisingly learned a lot. I It helped me learn more about the importance of film music, which I think was one of the big moments of being in the UK, was how much they emphasize music, how much they really show that music is important. And film soundtrack composition definitely was a good eye opener for me, because I did think about how film soundtrack, film composing, how important it was to music. I definitely wouldn't deny that it wasn't. I wouldn't deny that it was, but this definitely was a whole new level of showing you what film music does. It showed me that the music was part of the scene, it was part of the emotion, it was part of like what you were supposed to feel in that scene, and it's really unique. I There were so many movies that I saw that were definitely different in their own right. I For that final project for my film soundtrack composition, was I had to do two movie scenes that were over 4 minutes. I did a horror movie, and I did a sad scene from a superhero movie. I don't want to risk saying their names because I don't want to risk this video getting taken down, but that was definitely quite an experience. It also, a lot of the time, a lot of these classes taught me how to handle my time just in general. Like, I only had classes 2 days a week, but it was definitely a lot of work that I had to do. So in the meantime, I would either be practicing or having to work on it. There were some days, like, I had days off, like on the weekends, or sometimes during the week I would go to other cities in the UK, visit sites in London, sites in Windsor. I went to Windsor Castle back in November, the end of November, beginning of December. I went to London about two or three different times. It might have been more because I flew into London, but I went to London a few times. There was even there's a funny story that happened to me while I was over there. There was this new thing that they had for the passports. It was called the e-gate, where you basically scan your passport and they don't have to stamp it. They scan the passport and they're like, "Okay, you're in. You get to go into the country." I had trouble getting my school ID because that was such a new thing that airports, at least airports over there, had. So I had to get out of the country and come back. I had to get out of the country and go back in and like get my passport stamped in order for that to be valid. And that actually had me I actually ended up going to Amsterdam for a weekend, and I and I ended up I ended up getting my passport stamped, and I got some stamps from Amsterdam, and that was definitely quite a time. It was short, but I definitely did what I could. I tried a lot of the food. I tried a lot of I tried even the ale, like the beer. I I even just see what sights I could have saw in Amsterdam. I saw that famous like church with the big clock tower. I passed there a couple of times. I I I wanted to go to the Van Gogh Museum, but it was already I think it was already closed by the time I went there because I was already doing so many other things. And I, I there were so many things I could even say. Like there was there were some of my flatmates were definitely very interesting people, very unique, because I got to see different cultures, like not even just in the UK, but people that lived in the UK, people that basically went to school for the same reason, that were from different countries or studying abroad. Most of my flatmates were just studying abroad for a semester. A lot of them, I had flatmates from Denmark, I have flatmates from France, I have flatmates from Switzerland and Germany, and I think even I had a flatmate in India that was from India, and it was very it was very interesting to see the contrast between cultures and people, and just how things just it, you would be surprised how many differences there are in the US versus the UK or Europe or India. And that was another big takeaway I had. It was a culture shock. Some things There were some things that I was surprised they did differently that they wouldn't do differently, like like things at restaurants, um, going to stores, that kind of thing. But the culture shock wasn't as like woo woo like big as the other things that I did in the UK, but it was definitely apparent. Another thing that I would really like to bring up is the just overall like what I learned musically. It was more the significance of the appearance of music, like how apparent it was in the UK's culture. There are a lot of that school in particular showed me that they really cared about the students learning, the students being themselves, being like finding their own musical image. And that was the big thing that really stuck with me. There was it was also very, like I said, to it being laid back. They had practice rooms and they had recording studios that every student had access to, or at least almost every student had access to. You just had to book a slot, and you just had to be a music student. You had to book a slot, and you had to, what was it? You had to basically write the time and basically book a slot. But that was a very big thing that I never saw even places here, because a lot of the studios, the schools that I went to, you had to at least be taking a class that involves recording. You had to, which made a lot of sense. Like they couldn't just have someone willy nilly being recording music, but I guess the school in the UK saw that differently, and it makes perfect sense. Not everyone's going to have that same look or the same view on people, and I think the school just really wanted to encourage people to be themselves and find their musical identity. Now, one of the last things that I want to talk about is the just my whole takeaway. Like, what did I think of this experience overall? One thing I would say is I would do it again in a heartbeat. I It was by far one of the best experiences in my entire life, and I met some great people, some amazing people, some competent musicians, some just so many different people that from so many different backgrounds that were just so amazing. And I would definitely do it again in a heartbeat. I Even just performing there was, I felt like I was in my element, and I felt like that was the beauty that I found of that school. I was in my element, and I found that, and I felt that a lot of the lecturers, I think is the proper name for it, the lecturers encourage the students to really be themselves musically and really push them to be better than what they already are, which has always been my motto, at least not even just as a musician but as a person in general. Like, push yourself to be better than what you already are. And that was what I really enjoyed most of all. But all that's if any musician ever feels like, hey, maybe I should leave the country and play with musicians from a different country, it doesn't even have to be the UK. It could be Japan, it could be France, it could be Amsterdam, like in the Netherlands. It could be anywhere, even India, or any place in the world that you feel like you would want to go and visit and study abroad and meet with other musicians there. Go for it. If you really can do it, go for it. all I could say was I did it and I've never looked back ever since. And I I I could even I'll link down some of the videos from that experience of mine in the UK. I've uploaded, I believe I uploaded one or two covers of when I was in the UK, but I will link that in the description. Guys, I will have to go now because I will be helping out a friend with his podcast. But as always, stay tuned.